This is Wildcat Country.
Larson tipped it. Love has it. Lewis slams it, and Arizona wins it.
The inside scoop on the Arizona Wildcats.
It's Gunnar Maldonado. He's got blockers. Touchdown, Arizona.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bear down.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale, and football is back. Arizona's 1-0, and everything's great in the world. Well, something like that. Hey, glad to be here, Shane. 1-0, and we're gonna break it down from all angles. Our buddy Barrett Baker going to join us in segment number 2.
Well, as we know, Eric, not all 1-0s are created equal, and there were a lot more impressive 1-0s out there, but there were a lot more. I would say, Ohio State over Texas, LSU over Clemson, and
the Hawaii
Florida
fans
State over. Go ahead.
The Hawaii fans on our YouTube page are telling us that they're going to be amazing. That they should, that my comments last week were, awful, and they were going to show the players, and that did them a lot of good, didn't it?
Well, that didn't exactly come from an unbiased source. But what I was going to say is, there were some better 1-0s, but there are some plenty of not so good 1-0s, like the team I predicted to win the Big 12, just coming from behind to beat a Barrett to beat.
Well, they're 1-1.
Well, I understand, but they won 1-0 last weekend, barely.
Yeah, barely.
But look, I think we feel better about Arizona football on Saturday night. Did we feel better at the end of Saturday than we did at the beginning? Yeah, absolutely. I did. I think you did. I think most Arizona fans did, and it's we're that cautious optimism that where we're ready to open our hearts a little bit again. It's we're getting there. It was a good win. It was a good win. No two ways about it.
Let's break it all down in Buy or Sell, presented by our friends at Ice Shaker. Glad to have them back on board. And Shane, what do they have coming up?
Well, we're going to have the man himself, Chris Gronkowski, on next week to make some picks with us and talk about the new product that he got coming out that he's very excited about. Excited to have Chris back on board for football season. And the man's living an interesting life. I'll say that. I mean, he is definitely one of the lesser known Gronkowski brothers, but he shouldn't be because he's had the most business success.
All right, let's get to it. Number 1, Shane, after watching that domination of Hawaii, might be time to revise that record projection up. You buying or selling that?
So for those who don't know, I had Arizona winning 5 games this season. You had them winning 6. I will certainly buy that a path to 6 wins seems at least a bit more realistic now than it did before the game. And I will absolutely buy that a path to 3-0 seems a lot more realistic than it did on Saturday morning. When you factor in Kansas State's struggles, needing a late touchdown to avoid being upset at home by North Dakota. What I liked about the Hawaii game is that, obviously the final score, but Arizona won comfortably, but there are still plenty of things for the coaches to point out as areas of improvement. And my biggest concern was the penalties. By my count, Arizona had 3 holding penalties in the red zone in that game. Not a big deal on Saturday, but let's say you're locked in a tight game with K-State in a couple weeks. That's going to be a problem if that happens. So stuff to clean up, but I just like that early in the season you have a comfortable win, but the coaches can say, look, they can point to film and say, we got to do better here. We got to knock this off. And there's plenty of things there to point out. I would give Noah Fafita in particular a B, maybe a B+ for his performance. I thought his worst throw of the game was his very first one, which was caught by Trey Spivey into triple coverage, where all of us almost wanted to throw something at the TV, the first play of the season. But I thought he looked better as the game went on, especially on some of his deeper throws. I thought his best throw of the night was the one that was dropped by Gio Richardson near the goal line. It's good coverage, but Gio's a freshman, but it's probably a catch he should have made. But I thought Noah even looked a little more comfortable throwing deep balls than he did some of the shorter ones. I like that Seth Diggy's also letting him run the ball a little bit, though you obviously have to be selective about that. And I I liked his decision to freelance on that and score on that 10-yard run in the second half. And when you consider he was without Chris Hunter for most of the game, along with Kean Burnett and Chris Hudson, I thought it was a very promising performance. So all that to say, yes, I feel better about the team now than I did on Saturday morning. I think six wins is looking more realistic now. But you remember. It was against Hawaii, against the hobbled quarterback who wasn't able to run. And Arizona scored, I think, 61 points in its season opener last year. And you remember what happened after that. So feel good about it, but still plenty to work on.
So I'm going to reiterate something that I said last week. Hawaii is a beautiful place to live, and visit, especially their football team this year stinks. I don't care if the quarterback was hurt. They're not very good. That team is 4 wins at best, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe I'm wrong, but Arizona definitely looked the part. The one thing that I appreciated was the enthusiasm. That team played with fire. Like their hair was on fire. I was very impressed with the Wildcats, and so I would slightly revise it up. I think this could be a 7-win team. I wouldn't get carried away here, but I could see Arizona going 7-5 this season and playing a lot of competitive games, even in the losses. So this looks to be a better team significantly through one game. I mean, last year after that New Mexico game, I know they scored a lot of points, Shane, but we were kind of like disgusted, like, man, that defense kind of stinks.
Yeah.
That offense had its problems. T-Mac bailed them out.
Yeah.
Couldn't say that here. I mean, Noah's play concerned me a little bit, but
it was a more complete win, I would say.
Yeah, it was. All right, let's break it down position by position. I want you to buy just 3 of them. I want you to buy or sell Arizona units relative to your expectations going in the games. We'll group the offensive and defensive lines together. Buy or sell?
I'll buy both. The offensive line, I thought, looked the part for the most part, though. Again, you got to consider the level of competition. No Fafita, though. He had time to throw most of the game. He was only sacked twice. Tristan Bounds at right tackle, he got blown up on one of those sacks, so that's a concern. But decent pass protection, pretty good run blocking as we saw. D-line did better getting pressure throughout the night. They took a little while to get their footing, but again, I think Micah Alahado's his lack of mobility really was a big deal for Hawaii. I'm not saying Hawaii would have won, but just the fact that he couldn't run, and add that extra dimension to their offense. I think there was one play in particular where he tried to get to the outside and run and just couldn't. And by the time he was forcibly removed from the game, he was literally walking on one foot or one leg. So, look, they played well. They did what was asked of them. Five. I mean, it wasn't just the D line, but they contributed certainly to 5 takeaways. Had a good push most of the night. 5 sacks, 10 TFLs. Hawaii's running backs averaged just 3.6 yards per carry. Can't complain about the results, though. I think the first real test will come for the defensive line will come when they have to deal with a real dual threat quarterback with Avery Johnson in Kansas State. But I can't hate what I've seen so far.
Much improved. Very simple. Much improved on both lines of scrimmage. Major buy here. Running backs, wide receivers. Buy or sell, Shane? I'll start. Actually, I'm going to start with this one. The 3-headed monster of Risano, Mahdi, and the kid from Portland State.
Quincy
Craig was really legit. Like that. It kind of reminded me, Arizona had that backfield the other year. It was Speedy Luke, Michael Wiley, DJ Williams. They were able to rotate those guys. And I really feel like Arizona could have this could be a serious strength. Wide receivers TBD, because a lot of guys were hurt. So I'm not going to buy or sell those. What do you say about both units?
Yeah, I was thinking as well. With Rishno's a little bit bigger, the other 2 guys are smaller. I reminded me I don't want to lose my head over this, but I'm thinking Kadeem Carey's first season with sharing the backfield with Gil Antolin. That was a great setup. I'd like it if Arizona had at least one more big bruiser running back, but for now you can't complain about. Look, those 3 guys combined for 199 yards on 23 carries. And Craig was the big star. Obviously, he had his 54-yard touchdown run. But even if you throw that out, he still had 71 rushing yards on 6 carries. So even with that, they only got met in the backfield a couple times. So credit the offensive line again there. The only negative was the fumble by Craig. Fortunately, he got it back and kind of bounced right back to him. But you got to keep an eye on that. The receivers, like you said, it's kind of an incomplete grade. But again, It'll be interesting to see how good the wide receiver and the tight end units will look if and when everyone's healthy. 6 different wide receivers caught a pass, and then Sam Olsen had the touchdown catch. Luke Wysong was pretty quiet, 1 catch for 7 yards. I suspect he'll put up bigger numbers going forward. Richardson had the drop, but I'm interested to see whether it really is going to be by committee, because I remember 2 years ago with Jed Fish's final season, a lot of times, or almost every game, Arizona wouldn't complete a pass to more than like 4 or 5 receivers because they had studs. They had that
Right.
trio of McMillan and Cowing and McLaughlin. And now it's I'm interested to see if there's going to be like a couple breakout stars in that group, and one of them might be someone who didn't play on Saturday. I was happy with it. I was happy with it. Noah Fafita looked more and more comfortable distributing the ball as the game went on, getting to know these new faces. I know it's one thing to play with them in camp; it's another thing to actually play in a game. And I'm glad he's got another game, hopefully, to get comfortable and not have a lot of pressure going forward. But I'll buy both the units. Certainly, the running back group looked great. The wide receiver group is an incomplete, but I can't hate what we saw.
The last one I want to talk about is special teams. I couldn't believe how good they were relative to what we talked about here last week, Shane. The kickoff guy from
Ian
Illinois
Wagner.
State, Wagner. I mean, this dude had one of the strongest kickoff legs I have ever seen.
Yeah, at any level. Yeah,
It was
I think it was Mike Golick on the TNT broadcast said those kickoffs traveled all the way to Speedway or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
it was. I don't know if any of them actually landed in the field of play. I think they all went
one
beyond
hit the
goal.
goalpost. I cannot remember seeing a kickoff hit a goalpost.
I've seen it happen before, but I haven't seen
Been a
it
while.
where like all of them go. So that's just a luxury to have where you don't have to worry about a dangerous kickoff returner right there. But beyond him, you talked last week about being concerned about someone sharing the kicking, the place kicking, and the punting duties with Michael Salgado Medina. Nailed both of his
Great.
field goals, 52-yarder, which tied his best in when he was in high school. Also averaged 42.7 yards per punt. Little potential issues in the punting game. I would give them
He
a
was
straight.
good. I thought he wasn't bad.
No, he was pretty good. But I think the only thing I would ding them on is that last PAT with the botch snap.
I didn't see it. I was long gone
Yeah,
at Arizona
but I mean,
State, so missed that one, yeah.
no one cared because it didn't matter. It was it would have been at 41-6 instead. No one cares. But then also Jeremiah Patterson's 41-yard punt return to set up their Arizona's first possession touchdown that was capped by Riscano, and I mean that flipped the field and gave Arizona a lot of momentum. So a lot of good stuff on special teams. Can't complain about that either.
Yeah, Patterson sometimes looks like he needs a road map to catch a map to get to punt. But the first one was good. There was one that he muffed. I think he was hit or something like that. It wasn't good, and it bounced forward like 15, 20 yards, and it might have been kick catch interference nonetheless. But it was that could be a concern going forward nonetheless. I'd give them an 8 grade. I was really impressed with the special teams.
Yeah.
All right, this is something. I'm going to touch on this and then we can kind of debate on Arizona Stadium positives and negatives. Okay, this isn't necessarily a buy or sell, but the good was the DJ is gone. At least it was not there on Saturday night, thank God. And the crowd who was there was spirited. The bad, the sound system stinks. The fans left early. I mean, they said there were 42,000 there. I mean, we'll talk about this with Barrett and see if he agrees, but I said times 2 divided by 3. So there were not 30,000 people in the stands on Saturday. And thirdly, I mean, this got a lot of run on social media, and I hope somebody from U of A's athletic department is doing better math now today than they were going into it. So I went up to buy a soda. I'm driving, home, and I said, yeah, I'd like a Coke, and they said, well, would you like a large? And they show me the cup, and I look up at the menu and it says $9 and otherwise it's $3.
It's like $9.29 with taxes. Like
Yeah,
that one had
9.20,
tax
right.
on it. Yeah.
Right. So and the one I also had tax, but it was like $3.20, so $3.29. So it was like a $6 difference.
Yeah.
And you're getting half the amount of the drink. So 16 ounce versus 32. You cannot tell me that the souvenir cup is worth that. And I don't know, it says nothing there about free refills. That is one of the biggest marketing blunders.
Yeah. Well, when I first saw that, when you sent that to me, and then you posted it on social media, my thought was, well, just the math doesn't make any sense until I saw that it was actually a souvenir cup. So I guess I get that to a certain extent because usually, like if it's just a larger size, it should be less per ounce. I mean,
Right.
that's the whole
But
incentive to buying a larger one. But if it's a souvenir cup, I get charging more. But if you have a value menu of $3 and then you're going to upcharge to more than three times that or about three times that
for
doesn't make any
twice
sense.
yeah, I mean, the math doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So I
And
guess
and I
there's a souvenir cup element to it, but I don't think that's enough.
but I don't know if there's refills. I mean, somebody said I think on social media that there were. I never saw anything.
Okay.
I posted the menu. I took the picture of it and I put it up on my X feed. Shane, I don't know how that got approved by any, like, did somebody not know how to do math and said, okay, we're going to sell a $3 16 ounce and the 32 is going to be $9.
Yeah.
Come on. Like that's asinine. And you're talking about appealing to families with a $9 soda. Like, do you expect to sell any of those? Really?
Well, you know what though? I'd be interested in, and they probably won't tell us, but I'd be interested to know how many they did sell. I wonder if that was a good marketing strategy for them. I don't know. Maybe it's like the kid wants a souvenir cup and they get excited about it, and so the parents. I don't know, but yeah, well,
I mean, I know I'm making a big deal out of nothing. I understand that.
it's kind of
it
silly
just,
though. I agree with you.
it just was like it kind of added to the gosh, this is weird. It was just a weird atmosphere in a way.
Yeah.
It didn't feel, I mean, I was excited and the team played, with their pants on fire, great, but it just didn't have that buzz that I remember about Arizona State.
Something I mentioned, and I've been in some games where it has been very loud. I remember in particular the 2010 Iowa game where it was just crazy at the end of the game. But
Yeah.
you know what I remember, because I grew up in the Phoenix area. I watched a lot of ASU and U of A football, and I remember watching, like, and we're talking late 80s, early mid 90s, and just over TV. And I know that's very anecdotal, but just over TV, it always sounded like Arizona Stadium was the crazier atmosphere. It sounded loud. It always looked packed. It looked like if I had to go to one stadium or the other, I would rather go to that one because it looked like a lot more fun. And certainly on TV, it doesn't come across that way anymore, and it hasn't for a long time. So I don't know what the solution to that is, or maybe there is no solution. It's just the new normal. Of course, other than winning football games. But even then, I remember, in 2023 when Jed Fish lamented when they were about to play a ranked UCLA team, and he said, "Well, there's still tickets available. Not really sure how that's possible." Like, I still think about that every so often. I don't think that's the reason he left, obviously, but it's something that's in the back of my mind. So I don't know if it's an Arizona Wildcats thing. I don't know if it's just a college football, Southwest, West United States thing, because you look at other stadiums that aren't packed either this side of the country. But yeah, it's unfortunate the way that things have gone.
Speaking of Desiree, she made some comments last week that were interesting. She says the Big 12 has great fan support. The Big 12, a lot of the different cities that we're going to are smaller towns, very much like Tucson. There's a college feel, so that was a great familiarity. We're not going to LA. We're not going to East Bay. We're not going to Palo Alto anymore. We're going to Texas Tech and West Virginia. And those fans are passionate, and it's a different game day atmosphere. And I guess some people took offense to that. Do you buy or sell if you agree, buy it, and sell if you disagree with her comments?
There was a writer from the article you sent me is from sfgate.com. So San Francisco based writer who got all bent out of shape out of this. I kind of laughed a little bit at the writer who seemed to be personally offended by the comments.
Yeah.
I think she has a point. I mean, look at attendance. You want to talk about fan attendance in Palo Alto. It's like, even when Stanford was winning, it's usually not good. It's rarely very good at UCLA either. Now, is it something she had to say? No. So from that standpoint, it might have been a little odd. But I think the spirit of what she was saying is that in the Big 12, you have more universities and cities where the city revolves around the university, like Tucson. And you think about Morgantown or Lubbock or Ames or Lawrence or Stillwater or the Little Apple, Manhattan. So I think she has a point. While I don't think it was something that was necessary to say, kind of unprompted, I don't think it's worth getting upset about, especially since those schools don't play in the same conference anymore anyway.
Calling all Wildcat fans, did you know that Harrah's Auction Casino is your local home for Caesars Rewards? Every play unlocks perks at more than 50 destinations nationwide. Enjoy free dining in Atlantic City, hotel stays in New Orleans, and exclusive rewards from coast to coast. Sign up today, earn reward credits, and experience nationwide play only at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Caesars Rewards in Arizona. Well, we broke it down from all angles in week one. Let's bring in our buddy Barrett Baker to break it down even more here on Wildcat Country.
When you're on the golf course and it's 100 degrees outside, you know what's great? The ice shaker, which keeps your water cold.
You heard the man. Get your custom Arizona Wildcats ice shaker now at iceshaker.com.
Shane, it's time to talk about the good, the bad, and the very, very little bit of ugly from Arizona Stadium on Saturday night as the Wildcats defeated Hawaii 40-6. Feel bad for those fans who are on our YouTube channel who are still hitting me up about it. We talked about that earlier. Nonetheless, we welcome back our friend from the Tucson Fire Department, former special teams captain, Barrett Baker, to the show to break it all down for us. You know, as I told you before we had you on, Barrett, it's great to have, you back on the show when it's a positive week. Arizona looked great, 40-6. So I asked Shane this earlier, and I'm going to ask it to you right off the bat. You saw what they did in week one. Will you revise upward your win prediction from a few weeks ago on the show?
No, I mean, I think that there was so many positives compared to obviously how we finished up last season. But we're supposed to beat Hawaii, and we were supposed to beat them by roughly 13 to 17 points. So the fact that we did that, 40-6 and doubled that and got to 34 points, I think that's a huge, morale builder. But I think when you listen to the coaching staff and what we left out there on both sides of the ball, including special teams, and had a couple of near catastrophic things happen on the punt team, there's still a lot of improvement that needs to take place. But never complain about a victory because they are hard to come by, as we found out last year and in years past. And you just celebrate it, and there's nothing like a winning locker room and getting to listen to the kids sing our fight song and do it proudly. That's a great start to the season.
Barrett, let's get, since I like to be the wet blanket, let's get the negative stuff out of the way real quick, because there wasn't a lot of it in my opinion, but there was some, and Brent Brennan alluded to it after the game. Specifically, penalties were a concern for me. 3 holding penalties in the red zone by my count. No Fafita I thought looked better throughout the game. But some missed tackles here and there. Offensive line got blown up once or twice. Just what are some things, like if you're Brent Brennan or you're a member of his coaching staff, what would you harp on going into this week?
Well, I love the effort. And again, when you're flying to the ball on defense with bad intentions, then, that's where you start with. The holding penalties are the weird ones where a running back bounces it outside and you get a wide receiver getting called for a holding penalty on the exterior when, in many cases, they are not even expecting the running back to get out there. So I think some of those types of penalties, they're just the ones that are going to happen. There was not anything like the personal fouls or the unsportsmanlike conducts. So I think that's a positive thing with the types of penalties. I think the initial drive on defense, we get the stop to start the game. We score quickly, and then they take the life out of the stadium because they really go on almost a 7 or 8 minute drive. And it was just 2 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards, 2 yards, 4 yards. And so I think we were playing fairly vanilla at that point. And I think as the game went on, we had to start throwing a little bit more at them. But I think if you really are able to listen to Coach Gonzalez, and he had a press conference earlier in regards to breaking down all 12 defensive series, it's exciting and it's educational as a fan of the game to listen to this wizard talk about what happened on 12 separate defensive series and why there was a breakdown. And I would encourage all of our fans to do that because it's I've said this before, it's chess and it's not checkers.
Yeah.
But when you're playing chess and you are thinking about making the right move or this or that, it's got to be executed by the players. And when they don't execute it, then we have to figure out, did we not coach them right? Or was it just something that, their mind wasn't right? So I think that part of it, cleaning up some of the defensive mistakes when it comes to what they're expected to do. And then the last thing I would say, and this is about as negative as I can get, but we're still not clicking from the quarterback position consistently. And I think that's my biggest concern is the first throw to Spivey into triple coverage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as soon as it left his hand, it was no, 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 no. And then, an exhale and yes, 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 yes. But, and I mean, Noah's what you want as a leader of the program. But I think that there's still more productivity and consistency that we need to get out of that. And the challenge is that, he throws one to Phelps, he throws one to Watley. I mean, there is plenty to see where you're like, my goodness, that kid can throw the ball. And then there's a few times you just don't like what you see. And so I think that, again, first real game in this system, a lot of positives, but still a few things to clean up.
All right, we got that out of the way. Let's talk about what your mantra the last time we had you on, which for the defense, a return to violence. I thought we saw some of that. I thought there was one play in particular. It was actually prevented a Hawaii touchdown where a receiver just got blown up in the end zone. Did you like what you saw from the defense, not only just scheme wise, but in terms of the intensity that they brought to the game?
I did, and you're speaking of the Genesis Smith shot down on the goal line, and again,
that's right. It was Genesis Smith. Yeah,
what a huge play though, because that's a 7 point or 6 points if he catches it. If he doesn't go and deliver that blow, and in today's world, there's such a fine line between taking someone's head off and getting an unsportsmanlike conduct and targeting and being ejected, and then hitting said receiver hard enough to where you dislodge the ball, which is exactly what you want there. So I did. I thought some of the turnovers that we generated were hustle turnovers where there might be two guys on the ball and the third guy comes in and he rips the ball out. Having a short memory, Gavin Hunter, first start for him, played a lot last year and probably wasn't quite ready, had a fantastic spring, had a fantastic fall, gets called for 2 penalties back to back. What does he do though? Right. Next play is the only one that matters. Boom. Yep. Picks it off in the end zone, and had a couple of really, really good plays before that in the run game and making a great tackle once the reception was made. So, I liked the way the defense played, and I think that they're going to get better. I think when Riley Wilson comes back, he's going to be that X factor. I listened to Coach Gonzalez today, Bear Anderson coming up, and being part of that rotation on the defensive line. So, I think I said last week that, I'm very much in the Danny Gonzalez camp. And I think that we saw enough. Holding a team to 6 points is never easy. And 2 field goals and shutting them out in the second half, we got to be encouraged about that.
Barrett, where I was most pleased from what I saw from Arizona was on both lines of scrimmage. I thought the offensive line, you're playing Hawaii, I understand. But the offensive line was a lot better than I remember last year. I think obviously. And the defensive line also started to show me something. I know their quarterback was hurt and whatnot. Give me your thoughts on what you saw on both lines of scrimmage.
Well, I think you kind of said, we're playing Hawaii, and we almost say that as a negative. But let me flip that. Hawaii is, generally speaking, Polynesian, which equals big and strong. And so they are never not physical on the offensive and defensive lines. And I think when you take a look at our offensive line now, and, if you start on the left-hand side and you got Buchanan, who's 6'6" and over 300 pounds. And then you've got Wooten, who, credit to Coach Oglesby, who was under fire a lot last year. It wasn't working at tackle. So what do? We bump him inside. He's 6'5", 330 pounds. DeCambra, the transfer from Hawaii, is our smallest, so to speak. And he is probably 6'3", still over 300 pounds. You got Deuced is just a man-child, and he's a beast. And then Bounds is 6'8", and that's the biggest thing with him. He's probably not as heavy. That's 5 solid guys up front, and they played great. And so they're going to have individual breakdowns for sure. But I think that we saw a good start to the season. You still have Rhino that's a week or 2 away from coming back and being healthy. And where does he fit into play? So last year we had 7 different offensive line combinations in 12 weeks. And that had obviously a very negative impact. So offensive line, much improved, really like the protection on the whole. Couple breakdowns here and there. Defensive line, what do you say? Because I think when you're able to rotate 9 guys through there and get productivity out of 9, Chancellor Owens, he was able to even get in, and not to say like not even him, but he's a newcomer to the program that's a transfer from an FCS program. And he, got an opportunity to do some things. Bailey graded out very high. Tia Savea's a rock in there. Patu as a JC transfer as a first game. I mean, there was just a new wave of defensive linemen that you're going to have to get used to seeing. Well, who's 44 and who's 98 and who's 95? And, there's some numbers up front that we didn't have last year. And I think that's really going to be helpful.
Offensively, the running backs, really, really good. I mean, how do you think that situation will play out? And if you as a coach were deciding, how would you rotate them? Like, who would you play the most of those three?
I think that they all are different running backs, and that's the beauty of it, depending on what kind of defense you're looking at. And certain teams, if they're big and strong up front, then maybe we need to go with the speed back. If they're not as big and we can move them around, then maybe Ked is the guy because he's the power back. So I think Coach Carter did a great job of distributing reps. Marty coming in from Texas State, he had some home run abilities on film from last year. I think he'd been a little bit banged up, and he's not the biggest back, but I think his best football's ahead this year. And, how about Quincy? What a surprise coming from Portland State. And I think that's important that people understand that, is that, coming from different levels, and Bailey talked about this today, you have something to prove from when you're going from FCS to Arizona football. And for Quincy to come in and do what he's done since he stepped foot on campus, and that explosiveness, every time he gets the ball, he pops something. And so it's really fun to see that, because explosive plays really add themselves to winning football. When you have to go 3 yards a pop for 80 yards, that's challenging to do. So when you can get a running back that can pop something like that, and then Ked, he's a physical back that's still shifty. And then on top of that, what happened 2 times in that game where we went for it on 4th down and we got both conversions. And
Great point.
Hallelujah.
Love the aggressiveness.
Hallelujah.
Yep,
exactly.
Love the aggressiveness. Yep.
Yeah, and the second one was a keeper with Noah. And, it's 4th and 2.
Great call. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just say I did not like that decision, but I like the call.
Okay.
Well, I think you can get away with it because it's Hawaii. I mean, you're probably not going to see that in 2 weeks against Kansas State, but I kind of hope you do, because at this point, what do you have to lose?
A football game?
But and it was 17-6, I think, at the time.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. They get a
like,
little bit of momentum. I don't think it was going to happen. I'm just saying that's like I'm sorry, I'm an Arizona sports fan, not just Wildcats, but all Arizona sports. I always think worst case scenario. So that was just what was going through my head.
Well, and Shane, to that point, though, I guess I would say this. Coach Brennan obviously took a lot of heat last year. And some of that was, why are we punting and why are we doing it? And so maybe it's his comfort level that he makes every decision based off, a specific set of variables. And in this particular case, I think that he was asked about that. And he said, listen, I like the way we were running the ball. And so maybe, what team we have this year will dictate his aggressiveness as a coach as well.
All right, let's keep looking position by position, because I love your analysis, Barrett. The wide receiver group, or just the receiver group in general, wide receivers and tight ends. Not a lot of separation in terms of who's going to stand out. Chris Hunter left the game early. Chris Hudson didn't play. Both those guys can make a big impact, but we saw a little bit of pretty much everyone else. Kean Burnett didn't play a tight end as well, but Sam Olsen caught a touchdown. Do you think that maybe there's a couple of receivers who are going to end up emerging as the top go-to guys this season, or do you think maybe it's going to be by committee all year?
Well, committee's tough to defend. And so let's just blaze through it real quick. Heartbreaking to see Tyler Powell literally on the first offensive play come out, because that kid's got an NFL body, and I think his best football is really about to happen. So they haven't given an injury update on him, but I don't think it's fantastic. And then, Key Burnett, he's just had a hard time staying healthy. So we are all ready to Sam Olsen. There's very few players that have been vilified online like Sam Olsen was last year, and I'm not sure exactly why that was the case, but to come in as the third string tight end per se and play as many reps as he did and get that first touchdown as well, tip of the cap. He does everything right. He's got a new tight ends coach and says this guy knows exactly what he's supposed to do every single play. So I love to see that. And then that wide receiver group, to your point, missing a few pieces this year or in the first game. But, Brandon Phelps, great spring, disappeared a little bit during the fall camp, all of a sudden, two big catches again. Another receiver that's 6'3" or 6'4", and the reason that he had kind of disappeared is because Spivey had such a great fall camp. Spivey comes up, first play, as we talked about, fantastic catch. So, I think we've got some size there. Watley as fast as anything. We didn't really throw deep very often in this game, but I think that between Hudson and Watley that we're going to be able to stretch the ball vertically a little bit. And then, let's talk about the young kid. How about Mizell, excuse me. First game, number 17, couple of great catches, had no intent, I think, to play him as much as he did. And man, he made an impact in that particular game, including, getting that long third down catch where he got 15 yards and on 3rd and 17, and that let us get to the 4th and short, which we then converted. So, I just think that that's a strong receiver group. Coach Wade's done a great job developing some depth. And when you have that many players, Luke Wysong, I'm excited about Luke Wysong because he was a contributor last year for New Mexico. But you know what? He had a drop in the first game. If you get a drop, next guy's going to come in and make sure that he gets that rep. So I think it's going to be a very, really very difficult group on the whole to defend. But secondly, with injuries, and to your point, we already talked about Hunter barely, didn't even play for the most part in that game, and Hudson didn't even suit up. That group, their best days are ahead again.
All right, last question for you, Barrett, and appreciate the insight as always. I think we're going to expect a win over Weber State, hopefully comfortably as well. But just between now and Kansas State, because we got that game circled on our calendar. It looks a lot more winnable than it did a few days ago, right or wrong. What do you want to see in terms of improvement in this game against Weber State? Opportunities to get things right before the big showdown against K-State.
So a couple things there. The team that we saw on Saturday night against Hawaii is almost a different team that we're going to see for Weber State and then Kansas State the next week, because Killebrew, Trayden Stukes, Riley Wilson, Hunter, Hudson, the list goes on and on. Anderson, there's 8 kids that didn't suit up in that game that are going to be important players for Arizona football this season. And getting them up to speed. Rhino is another one. So, the number of kids that were held out and that will contribute for this team, I think, again, competition and depth, that's really, really important over the course of a 12-game season. So I want to see what those guys do when they get their shot. And we should beat them, and we will beat them. But you got to come out of it injury-free. And then more than anything else, play clean. And I think Coach Gonzalez, again, I keep going back to that, but if the defensive call calls for a twist up front, then you got to run the twist. If it calls for a defensive lineman to drop, then you got to be able to be right. You have to be right with your assignments. And I think DeMarco Murray, a former coach, he said alignment, assignment, execution, right? Alignment. Are you where you're supposed to be? Assignment. Do you know what you're supposed to do? And lastly, execution, the third. That's the hardest one. But if you can't get the first 2 right, then number 3 is never going to happen. So cleaning up a few of those small things in that regard. And then offensively, I just need to see a little bit more when it comes to the vertical passing game. Not vertical, but the passing game. I want a higher completion percentage. And I will say this, I keep being negative about that, but 0 interceptions, right? We didn't turn the ball over. And when you don't turn the ball over and you get 5 turnovers, that's winning football as well.
Give me a score prediction for Saturday.
I think it's going to be a little bit more of what we saw against Hawaii. My hope is that we can do a little bit more offensively, and so I'll move it up just a little bit and go more for like that 48-13 type of game.
48. Boy, you and I are thinking very alike. One more thing I want to talk about, and I don't want to be negative, but you and I talked about this a little bit off the air. The environment at Arizona Stadium, it just felt off to me. I don't know if you felt the same, but what would you suggest to improve it? Give me one improvement suggestion that you'd have.
You're baffling me for the first time that I can remember, and I just don't know if I can come up with it. I think football is just so very different. the 3.5-hour games, the TV timeouts, the inability to pack a stadium because of the fact that it's so much more convenient to sit there and watch it from your television in your living room. The deck is just stacked against us. And I think the one thing that solves it is when we win and we actually have a sea of red in the stadium, the vibe itself is just different. And so, their job is to win. Our job is to follow them when they win. And I think if that happens, then we'll get back to some of those home field advantages. I thought the student section did do a great job. But to your point, Eric, there is an energy in a stadium, and it's either there or it's not. And sometimes it comes and goes in the game, depending on momentum, who the opponent is, and some different variables there. But for Kansas State, right, it will be imperative that place is stacked and loud from 10 minutes before the kickoff to 10 minutes after the game. And when you do that, then I think that energy level that you were talking about, we can control it a little bit more with sheer numbers.
It's not going to be. I mean, it's a Friday night, high school football. I mean, just being honest, we know how these games go. I think they said 42,000. What I said on Twitter was like times that by 2 and divide it by 3, because there weren't 30,000 people in the stadium. If you do the math, there were 27,000 at most. If I were Arizona and money were not a problem, I would knock down that top deck on the east side. That the top part of that stadium needs to go. I would rebuild that kind of instead of having that level up, I would build it kind of like the west side where it's all just kind of one level. And I would shrink the stadium to 45,000 at most. It's just too big. And it's every time you go in there, the first thing you do is you look up. I do. And I look up and I see nobody sitting up there.
Then it becomes a negative, right? Then
right.
It becomes
tarp
a
negative.
It off.
I mean, why? If I were them, why would you have people buy tickets up there when you can put them in the other parts of the stadium and make it look more full? Tarp it up. Tarp it. And reposition those tickets. I mean, this is not an expensive thing. Get a few tarps. It's going to cost a few $100s. I think the athletic department can afford it. And it would change how the environment looks. ASU did it for years at Sun Devil Stadium until they redid it.
And I think that, maybe there is something to that in just the whole home field advantage. And I mean, Coach Brennan has not been shy about that. Coach Fish was not shy about that before that. It really does have to be something that rivals, dare I say, anything that you see, in the SEC. Mm-hmm. I temper that with this. I'm hardcore. You're hardcore. Mm-hmm. I feel like I have an obligation to get my tail and my family to Section 12 for every single game because I know it makes a difference to the players and I know it makes a difference to the outcome. And so, he's got to win. I say he is in Coach Brennan and the staff. And if we do a little bit more of that consistently, then that is the downstream result, hopefully, is that we can pack that place and get a little crazy.
All right, last question for you. I talked about this with Shane earlier. How many people, honest attendance for Saturday night's game against Weber State with the potential of bad weather somewhat out there?
I mean, I don't expect it to be great because, again, all of the variables that you've just talked about.
Yeah.
But I think the hope, again, there's only 12 games in an entire season that you look forward to. 12 times that you get there and cheer your team on during the fall.
At home. Six at home.
So 6 or 7 at home. So half of that. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just like, just get there and cheer as loud as you can and make it some memorable experience for you, make it for some memorable experience for the team. And that's what it takes to build a program. That's what it takes to make a winning program. And I look at UCLA or Stanford, and it's embarrassing to me. But to your point, I think it's just almost a college football west of the Mississippi issue. And maybe when we can sit there and be that top 15 program, then, and I believe that we can get there, then we can laugh at this conversation a few years later.
I certainly hope so. Barrett, always great to have you on. You're the best.
Appreciate
we'll
you
talk
guys.
to you in the coming weeks.
Sounds good. Bear down.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi folks, here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
You know, Shane, great to catch up with Barrett. Always fun to chat with him. But you know what I've been waiting for? Some Shane standouts.
Yeah.
Here in segment 3, what do you got for us?
Very exciting. Yeah. Well, and this is a segment where, because, the headline's always football or men's basketball later in the season, but we want to mention, want to go throughout all of Arizona athletics and give shout outs where they're due. I'm going to start with Jordan Wilson on the undefeated volleyball team. She had a team high 36 kills in Arizona's sweep of Alabama State, Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, and Fresno State at the Wildcat Classic last weekend. And U of A did not drop a single game in that series. They won 3-0, 3-0, 3-0. And Jordan Wilson was the best of the bunch. So they have a 3-game road set for the Boise State tournament coming up this week. So best of luck to Coach Stubbs and the volleyball team. Hope they're able to keep it going. Soccer team had a rough trip to the Bay Area, but I do want to shout out goalkeeper Liv Ramey for making 7 saves and a 2-1 loss at Cal on Sunday. That's a lot of saves for a soccer match. Despite the loss, she helped keep Arizona in it. She's only a sophomore, so I'm sure she'll continue to improve as well. So rough trip, but she definitely stood out in the game against Cal. And then finally, just to bring it back to football, I want to shout out my favorite current Arizona Wildcat, Dalton Johnson, who had 10 total tackles, by far the most among all Arizona defenders against Hawaii. Didn't hear his name called a lot. He didn't have a turnover, or didn't force a takeaway. But he's just one of the best players and leaders on the team, and he's just everywhere. And again, we talked about him earlier, but Ian Wagner, again, I don't think any of his kickoffs landed in the field of play. Just a great way to eliminate any type of big kickoff return threat throughout the season, presumably, as long as the wind's not, going 20 miles an hour the other way. So shout is a redshirt senior, originally from Sierra Vista, so got a cannon for a leg. So those are my shout outs for this week.
That was a very nice pickup by Brent Brennan. All right, time to make some picks. Just you and me this week. We both got 3 total points. Remember, 1 point for a spread pick, 1 point for an upset special cover, 1 point if they went outright, and 2
Eric,
points.
I want to say I got 4.
All right, you got 4.
You get TCU.
You're right. You had 4. Yeah, that's right. You beat me. Thank you.
I correctly picked against Bill Belichick.
Yep. So now we're tied at 4 on the season because I got the 1 right. So thank you. Good call. I did not include that last night. Boy, what an embarrassment by North Carolina. Upset special, Shane. What do you like this week?
I don't like to go against Coach Rod, our guy who's been on the show a couple times, but I'm going to take Ohio as a 3.5-point home underdog against West Virginia. Ohio lost a very close game at Rutgers on Saturday. Their quarterback, Parker Navarro, had three passing touchdowns and 93 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. West Virginia looked good in their season opener, but I think this is kind of a reality check that there's going to be a rebuilding process in Morgantown, even though I think Coach Rod's going to do very well there again. But I'm going to take the Bobcats, some action, the Bobcats in a small upset over West Virginia.
I'm going to agree with you. The second straight week that you and I have agreed. We lost with Southern Miss against Mississippi State last week, but I like Ohio to win this game outright. Their schedule at the outset: Rutgers, at Rutgers, then West Virginia, then at Ohio State. It's kind of a must-win game. At home, where I believe they were undefeated last season. As you mentioned, veteran quarterback. I just don't think it's a good spot for West Virginia, who had 4 fumbles lost.
I completely forgot I was going to bet you before we made the picks that we had the same one again. I just had a feeling that we did.
Oh, I put in my bet on Monday night. I played that money line already for the weekend. I don't play them.
I don't play them for real. This is the most excitement that I get. I leave all the heavy wagering to you.
You're missing out. All right, let's go to this. Is an interesting game. Iowa State.
Yeah.
Iowa State is favored by 3. I actually think Iowa can upset them. I'm going to take Iowa with the points here. I'm not sure if I'm sold on Iowa State.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you again. I know everyone's raving about Rocco Beck's performance. but I think Iowa State's defense, or Iowa's defense rather, is a tad better than South Dakota's. I think this is a classic revenge game after what happened last year. I like Iowa to get some payback and win in a very low-scoring 13-10 kind of game in Ames.
Okay, fair enough. We agree there. A team that I was really disappointed in last week, Shane, was Baylor. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought they would beat Auburn, and they came out and got whooped on Friday night at home. Now they have to go on the road to SMU, who made the college football playoff last season. What do you see as the Mustangs are favored by 3 points?
Yeah, I think that line seems a little suspicious. A top 20 team, just a 3-point favorite at home against an unranked opponent. And it's it's so early in the season that we don't know. Okay, was it a situation where Baylor just doesn't any good, or is Auburn better than expected? We just don't know. Somewhere in between, maybe. I think Baylor gets it together this weekend. Maybe I'm just being stubborn and pro Big 12 now, but it's more of a gut feeling. I'm going to take Baylor outright. Another slight road to underdog. I'm going to take Baylor.
Interesting. I think Baylor is that defense has problems. So I am going to fade them. I'm taking SMU to win this game by 4 points or more. Kansas, Missouri. This used to be a big rivalry. I don't know the last time that these two teams actually played, but it's nice to see them playing again. And Kansas is getting 6 on the road at Mizzou.
Yeah, I'm going to go against my better judgment, and my judgment's always, there's nothing better about it. But I'm going to go with another road dog here, though I'm glad I get the points for this one. Jayhawks are 2-0. I know the competition has not been stiff, but I really like how Jalen Daniels has been playing. I think Mizzou's going to go in a little overconfident. KU might surprise them. I don't know if they're going to pull the upset, but I think either Kansas wins or keeps it closer than 6.
Boy, you and I agree here as well. I like Jalen Daniels to keep it close. In a rivalry game like this, I just don't see Mizzou blowing them out. So I think this one will be a little bit closer than the 6-point line. Here's one that I think is really interesting. I also put in a bet on this one on Monday when I saw this line. Kansas State, who should have lost to North Dakota at home.
Yeah.
Are they looking ahead on a short week to Arizona? And they are 17.5-point favorites at home against an Army team that just lost to Tarleton State last week. Which way are you leaning? 17.5 is a big number, Shane.
Yeah, well, of course, my cursed Big 12 championship pick continues to not look the part. I got to think K-State gets it together eventually. And wouldn't it be just like Arizona for Kansas State to start clicking right before they played the Wildcats? They went to Ireland in week 1. It was a disappointing outcome. They struggled to get up for their next opponent. I think this is the week they reset and come out focused against an Army team that just lost at home, like you said, to Tarleton State. So give me K-State to cover.
I just don't think that Kansas State's all that good. And I think they are going to, from what I've seen, this is a team that is going to struggle this season. And I like Army to keep it closer. That the option attack, Kansas State's not going to try to do anything special here. They're just going to try to play vanilla because going on the road next week at what looks to be an improved Arizona team, I think Army keeps this one within 2 scores. Michigan and Oklahoma is the game of the week. Oklahoma's giving 5.5 points to the Wolverines. Game is in Norman. I'm actually excited to watch this one.
Yeah.
I think the Wolverines keep this one close. I'm not saying they win the game outright, but I think Michigan, I see this as a 21-17, 24-20, 27-24 type of game. So I think 5.5 points is too many. I'm taking Michigan with the points. What do you say?
Bad news again, Eric. I'm agreeing with you again. And this is the kind of game that could be make or break for Brent Benaville's. My gut is telling me to go with Michigan. They didn't look especially sharp at home against New Mexico. It's more of a gut call. I'm going to go with Michigan to cover, even though I think OU is probably a slightly better team. They're playing at home. My gut's just telling me either Michigan wins or it's a really close game.
Okay. How about this one? ASU is a 7-point favorite at Mississippi State, where Arizona fell a couple years ago. Now, the Bulldogs aren't very good, but they looked a lot better than I expected last week against Southern, as we both expected against Southern Miss. So ASU giving a touchdown. Which way do you lean?
ASU looked a little shaky against NAU, but Lumberjacks, to their credit, they're actually a decent FCS team, unlike a couple of years earlier when they were awful and still beat Arizona. So I don't think that result in Tempe was a complete surprise. Like I said, we were both wrong about Mississippi State. They looked sharp at Southern Miss. I think it's going to be a tough environment for ASU. They're getting ready for the Cowbells already. It's probably going to be a close game for that reason, if nothing else. But ASU, I think they're just more talented. I think it's a close game most of the way, but I think they pull away late and win by 10 points or so. So I'm going to take the Devils to cover.
Yeah, I think ASU pulls away late as well. I think you and I agree there. I think ASU wins by double digits here. Just don't think Mississippi State is that good. And ASU with Levitt and Jordan Tyson, albeit NAU kept him, within respectability. I don't think that says, that's nothing against ASU, who probably had a vanilla game plan as well. I expect them to play pretty well against Mississippi State. Finally, Weber State and Arizona. Shane, I don't know much about Weber State, but they look like they're not very good. And it's going to be an empty Arizona Stadium, and this is probably going to be a blowout.
You saw my tweet about, like, for the next 2 weeks, that the meme from The Simpsons. Who are we? The Wildcats. Who are we going to beat? The Wildcats.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot that. Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah. But like you said, Weber State, they're not just an FCS team. They're a bad FCS team. They had 148 yards of total offense against James Madison in week 1, turned the ball over 3 times. I do think Arizona might walk into this game a little overconfident, just because that's in the nature of young athletes after a win like they won, like the game they had against Hawaii. So maybe it's closer than we would have liked for 15, 20 minutes. But I think Arizona pulls away kind of like they did against Hawaii and wins somewhere in the range of, let's say, 41-14. And most importantly, like Barrett said, hopefully everyone stays healthy and or gets healthy heading into what looks at this moment like a winnable game against Kansas State next Friday. But I've got Arizona winning comfortably 41-14.
So Barrett said 48-13. We're all kind of in agreement. The spread is not out, but I expect Arizona to be favored probably somewhere in the 28.5 to 34.5 range. So our picks are going to be close. I'm not sure we're going to be getting the 2 points here. I have Arizona 45, Weber State 14. So we're all kind of between 41 and 48 points and them scoring, twice. I just, I don't think Arizona has to show a lot in this one. Win the game, score some points, get Noah out, get Braden Locke in there for his first action as an Arizona Wildcat in the second half. Stay healthy on a short week against Kansas State. Do what you need to do. I will be missing this game, but I'm excited to go down to Tucson for Arizona Kansas State. In a week and a half. That'll be a big one. Take care of business. Go 2-0. Give us some reason for excitement. I really want to see a bowl game this year. Throw it. Let's see what they got. So we'll be watching on ESPN Plus, and we'll break it all down for the Kansas State game coming up next week. So for Barrett Baker, Shane Dale, as always, great job. I am Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening, and as always, bear down.